All right, let's talk some dogs with our guy, Connor K. Riley.
Dukes and Bell on the sidelines with the Dogs. The Dog Report is brought to you by Engineered Solutions of Georgia, a proud partner of the Georgia Bulldogs.
And I might have switched that and reversed it with K. Connor Riley. He is from DawgNation. All right, the big question as we move forward towards now the Combine is who's going for the Dogs, Connor? Who's going to be there? And more importantly, who do you think needs to really show out? Because some of these guys are projected first-rounders already. Who needs to go and really do something special?
Yeah, so Georgia had 12 players invited to the Combine today. That is the second most in college football. Only Alabama has more with 13. I think Stetson Bennett's an obvious one, and it's not even so much that he needs to go there, because quarterbacks so rarely wow at that event. I'll be interested in seeing what he runs and obviously what he measures in that as well. His hand size, I think, is going to – I actually think maybe help Stetson Bennett a little bit because he does have a decent-sized hand, and that – has been somewhat predictive of how quarterbacks end up doing. While he's not going to measure in the biggest, I do think he might measuring bigger than I think some people expect. He is closer to 6 feet than he is not. As far as the guys, there are three, in my opinion, that need to test well/do well. And one of them, we're not certain if he's going to be able to test. That's Nolan Smith. He's still coming back from his pectoral injury. Last I had checked in on it, there's the thought that maybe in April he might be able to fully run and test and be fully cleared and ready to go to show teams what he can do, because there is some thought that he might be a first-round pick given all that he meant to Georgia in the variety of ways that he can do things. He's not a pure pass rusher, but he's an outside linebacker that can do a lot of things for you. The other two guys are Darnell Washington and Keely Ringo. I mean, Washington won just to get the actual measurements on him and see how well he tests. If he tests well, I think there's a chance he ends up sneaking into the back half of the first round there. And then with Ringo, look, there have been a lot of questions on him. A lot of draft people didn't love the tape that he put out this past year. But if he goes out there and runs a 4.35, and importantly for him, I think tests really well in the short shuttle, some of the short area quickness drills, it's going to be impossible for a team not to draft him based on his tools. And so if Washington, Keely Ringo, and Nolan Smith are able to test well, I think they're really going to be able to help themselves and cement themselves as first-round picks.
I know Nakobe Dean, everybody wanted him, but the size and the pectoral issue kind of pushed him in. Again, we haven't really seen him yet because the Eagles' lineup is stacked. He hasn't had a chance to crack the lineup, but Nolan Smith will project higher. And then I know we've debated this because of it's moving on the flat feet and moving the hips is always the argument about Keely from the so-called experts. You don't think he'd ever take a shot at playing free safety? You say he's going to be a corner in the league.
I think he wants to try to be a corner in the league. Corners just get paid more than safeties. They also get drafted higher than safeties, and so there's more of the value there. But I think one of the things that sort of gets lost in Keely Ringo, he's not a perfect cornerback. He did not, if you're looking for height, he's not the slam dunk Darrelle Revis, Richard Sherman in his prime type cornerback. But he did a lot of really good things for Georgia this past year. And if you go back and watch that game against Ohio State, I know Marvin Harrison had a really big game that day. Not all that was on Keely Ringo, and Keely made some plays in that game. Yes, he did give one of the touchdowns, but not all the stuff that you saw this past season was on Keely. And look, I got knowing him a little bit, knowing his journey. This is a guy with his character I feel very comfortable, betting on, believing that this guy's going to figure out how to be a really talented cornerback at the next level. I think the option to move him to safety is there, but look, Kirby Smart knows a hell of a lot more about defensive backs than I do, and he knows more about defensive backs than a lot of people do. If this guy thought that Keely could be a better free safety, he absolutely would have moved him there and played him there. But he felt very confident and comfortable sticking him out there at corner in the last two seasons where Georgia happened to win national championships.
It's Connor Riley joining us from DawgNation, guys. Dukes and Bell Sports Radio 92.9 The Game, and we'll get back into our discussion about what our Hawks are doing. We're a day away from the trade deadline. Also, Falcon Report straight ahead, and more on LeBron breaking the all-time scoring record. Connor, a couple of things from Josh Brooks. One, are the Dogs going to the White House? And two, what did you make of him saying that he does not think necessarily policy needs to be changed after the tragic accident that happened that took the lives of, two young people? And a lot of people said, do they need to change the policy? Am I hearing him right? He said that, right? He doesn't believe that was the reason, or that it doesn't need to be adjusted?
Yeah, they're still reviewing some of the policies that they have in place with this. We got a chance to talk with him yesterday after the athletic board meeting. And one of the things that he had stressed was that rental car that they were driving was supposed to be returned. It had not been. the usage of that vehicle, especially at that time of night, was unauthorized per university policy there. And the investigation into that is obviously still ongoing as they try to, again, piece everything together that led to the unfortunate accident that took the lives of Devin Willock and Chandler LaCroix there. As far as the White House visit, they are still trying to sort that out and figure out when that might potentially happen. Josh Brooks is unaware of when that might come together. One thing I will note, the college football championship team has not gone to the White House since 2020 pre-pandemic, essentially. And the last couple of teams that did go to the White House went almost immediately after their national championships. And that kind of makes sense when you consider, guys going off to party and getting ready for the NFL draft and going into classes and things like that. At Georgia, obviously the tragic passing of LaCroix and Willock, I think, played into part of that not happening as quickly as it did after the fact. And so, getting the right people and getting everyone there to be recognized is going to be a little tough to pull off in terms of the logistical challenges of getting people there to the White House. But I should note as well, people want to see it. I do think that I know there's bipartisan support on both sides of the aisle to get Georgia to the White House there. And I do think Georgia would be open to having the opportunity to go meet with President Biden, have that showcase and be there. I just, Kirby Smart also really values recruiting, and I don't think he's necessarily going to want to give up a recruiting weekend to go do that on a weekend, obviously.
Hey, man, the big question we've been talking about the last couple of weeks because he's still linked to the Ravens. Second interview. Do you know anything about Todd Monken? I know you guys had an article that came out in DawgNation saying they'll make him the highest, if he's not already the highest, make him the highest paid assistant. Talking about Todd Monken.
Yeah, he's already the highest paid offensive coordinator in the sport, at least among public schools. Obviously private schools, they're not privy to sharing how much they are paying their coaches. But money is not going to be an issue in terms of Georgia keeping Todd Monken. He has interviewed twice with the Ravens, I believe. I know he's at least interviewed once and may have interviewed a second time for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers job. My read on this, I don't think he wants the Tampa Bay Buccaneers job. I think he sees, obviously, the Ravens job as a lot more attractive because you either have Lamar Jackson going forward or you've traded him and essentially get back a bushel of picks, one of which you would think would be used to develop a future quarterback there. But I know the Ravens are still very much trying to interview and get a lot of names out there. They're waiting on Eric Bieniemy, who I believe Adam Schefter reported today is a very intriguing candidate for both the Washington Commanders offensive coordinator job and the Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator job. And it's worth pointing out here as well that there are still two head coach openings in the Arizona Cardinals and the Indianapolis Colts. And if those guys happen to go defense and they're looking for an offensive play caller, I still think Todd Monken would be an attractive option there. And so Georgia, again, if I had to guess, I don't think he takes the Tampa Bay Buccaneers job. It sounds like he's not the Ravens' first choice to be their offensive coordinator. And so what's today, the 8th, on February 8th, if I had to guess right now with the way things are going, I'd probably lean that Todd Monken is in fact going to be back for Georgia next year as the offensive coordinator.
Cool. Nothing's happened. We've just been kind of speculating about it. And, yeah, with no movement, it makes me feel like he probably is going to be back. I want to ask you about the scheduling in Texas and Oklahoma. They were trying to get out of their deals, and it looks like it's not going to happen. But I know this is something else that you were talking with Josh Brooks about. Yeah,
so Texas and Oklahoma are trying to work out a deal with the Big 12 right now in terms of potentially getting out. Reports coming out of that are that's not looking like it's going to happen. And the real reason why, or the big reason why, is because Fox, when they did the TV contract with the Big 12, they did it in mind thinking that Texas and Oklahoma were going to be a big part of it. They are obviously the biggest draws of the Big 12. That is ultimately why they're leaving to go join the SEC. I don't think that that Fox right now is thrilled about the possibility of losing the inventory of Texas and Oklahoma games, especially to ESPN, when those games would become SEC. And obviously Fox doesn't get to broadcast any of those going forward, as those are as the SEC will be exclusively on ESPN starting in 2024. So it sounds like, especially as we get closer and closer to it, it sounds like Oklahoma and Texas won't end up joining the league until 2025. And once it is sort of finalized when Texas and Oklahoma will join the league, from there the SEC will make full decisions on what the football schedule looks like. If I had to take a guess right now, I would still probably say that we're looking at a 9-game schedule model where it is 3 permanent rivals for Georgia. That would most likely be Auburn, Florida, and South Carolina, and then a rotation of the 6 other teams. That way, every 2 years, you're playing every member in the league. And then every 4 years, you're at least visiting every school in your conference. For example, Georgia and Texas A&M still have not played each other, despite Texas A&M joining the league back in 2012. And when I say they haven't played each other, Georgia has not played at Texas A&M and is still not scheduled to do so until 2024. Now, with Texas and Oklahoma not joining the league yet, I think that game does get played at Texas A&M in 2024, but it proves, I think, the ineffectiveness of the previous scheduling model for the SEC.
Connor, if Jalen Carter is the number one pick off the board, that would be back-to-back years, right, that the Dogs have had the number one pick in the draft?
That would be correct.
Has that ever happened?
I believe Oklahoma did it in 2017 with Baker Mayfield and then Kyler Murray the next year, or 2018 NFL draft and 2019 NFL draft with Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray.
Okay. I'm just curious because that is what the Dogs are doing, back-to-back years potentially. Hey, great job as always. Tell the people where they can follow you.
Yep, you guys can follow me on Twitter at @KConnorRiley. Even though it is the off season, we'll have plenty of stuff on Monken as that continues to develop, as well as looking ahead to next year when Georgia goes for a three-peat, something I would point out that LeBron James never did at the NBA level.
Shots fired.